After Odyssey, the hype for Christopher Nolan to finally do a full-on horror movie is at an all-time high right now. So I was thinking, why not do a full video on other filmmakers, directors that should do their own horror movie? Now look, some of these options are very much out of left field. I'm not gonna lie to you, but look, I feel like it might be fun. But what is happening? We're back on the channel once again. Hi, if I don't know, I'm Eli Valentine. On the channel, we cover all things horror movies. So if that is your thing, definitely sub up. Got 5 directors who I think should do a horror movie at some point in their career. First things first, the whole point of this video being made, Christopher Nolan. The horror scenes in the Odyssey is probably my favorite part of the whole movies by far. The Cyclops scene, oh man, that scene, the whole sequence was just terrifying. Not because of the creature itself, but because of the whole scale. They're in this cave, right? And at first, you don't see the Cyclops, but you would feel his presence, right? And after you find out it was all on practical effects and everything, it just makes it even better because the scale of him is so fucking massive, and it's like this feeling of you can't escape, right? The sound, the darkness, and the feeling of like the crew realizing that they can't beat him, they can only escape, which creates this sense of like dread, which I love. And that scream, oh my god. Still don't know how was that so loud. The Cyclops scream was probably one of the most loudest things I've ever heard in my whole life, and I loved it. So I think survival horror would be great. And then the Cersei scene was incredible for many reasons, but in terms of it being horror related, the body horror now, oh man. Basically, when I say, if you haven't seen it somehow, when I say she transformed men into pigs, she physically transformed the men into pigs. Crazy stuff, incredible stuff here. So with someone like Nolan, right, who would just love doing practical effects, I feel like you just have a love for that. I think a body horror Nolan movie would be fun. How would the cast even look like? At this point now, I do think Nolan is the biggest movie star in the business right now. So it's like, would he go back to a smaller cast, or is he going to keep a big, massive A-list cast ensemble? I don't know. That would be cool to see a horror movie with such a big, massive cast. That does not happen at all, really. So that would be kind of cool, right? But I think a body horror Nolan movie would be great. The effects, especially, man, a horror movie with 70mm IMAX. Oh my god, the shots he could create, rather as monster, as body horror, I don't know. It would look so fucking good. Next up on the list, we have Greta Gerwig. Now look, hear me out. This might sound crazy, but Greta Gerwig has to do a horror movie at some point. I see the potential, right? Where all their movies have definitely been about identity and trying to figure out who you are as a person and who you want to become. Movies like Lady Bird, where it's about the mother and the daughter, Little Woman, about womanhood and the different lives they're expected to live. Something like Barbie, right, where it's about identity, autonomy, and what it actually means to become a real person, right? I think those things translate phenomenally into a horror movie. We just had Leviticus, where it's about self-identity and self-growth and doubting your sexuality and stuff like that. You could take certain fears and desires and turn that into something scary. And the thing about her is she's gonna make you care so deeply about these characters. So by the time the horror even starts, you're so attached to all these characters. I feel like that might hit. I don't know. So a modern coming of age horror story, something like here. I ain't gonna lie. If Gerwig did a Carrie movie, hear me out, I see the potential. But my boy Flanagan, that's a whole different story about what's going on with that thing. But anyways, back to Gerwig here. I don't know, a modern coming of age horror story with her and how she balances horror and balances humor and emotion. I feel like her characters could work great here. Next up, we have Wes Anderson. Man, look, hear me out here. I think Wes Anderson will make a phenomenal horror movie because look, visually it will look so nice. Horror and Wes Anderson seem like so complete opposites, right? His movies are colorful, they're very carefully organized, perfectly symmetrical shots, but I think that exact feeling can make such an eerie and unsettling horror movie. Think about it, right? He creates these worlds where everything feels and looks so perfect. Every room, every object is perfectly placed, right? I think that's where the horror could come in, right? Something about this world seems so perfect. Something gotta be off. His characters could feel so trapped in such a perfect world. I felt the world he could build with the character just feel trapped in a place that looks familiar but unsettling at the same time could be great. Wes Anderson has already done characters that are dealing with grief, loneliness, family trauma. All those ideas do great before. Next up, I think, hear me out, Olivia Wilde needs to do a full-on horror movie. Cause look here, something about her, especially after watching The Invite, which I love, such a great comeback after people, man, was shitting on Don't Worry Darling. Look, me personally, side note here, I am a Don't Worry Darling defender to the forever. I would have been with forever, but that's besides the point here. Something about her, right? The tension that was in The Invite were incredible. She was able to create so much tension and just ongoing and building and building and building without any horror actually happening. The way the camera was framed, right, and certain shots were just lingering and lingering on the characters were beautiful. She has done stories now where the characters she's makes feel so trapped by expectations, relationships, or systems that promises things that just won't happen. Or there's something darker underneath that, right? With something like Don't Worry Darling, which I said I love, it explored the themes of someone that's perfect, a perfect world, right? But underneath that, it was not that at all. The autonomy of taking someone from their life and putting them in a 1950s world is great. Don't Worry Darling ain't full on horror, but I'm telling you, I think she would do greatly at that. The Invite showed that she could make films and use the camera to build such tension and awkward moments and make ordinary moments just feel so uneasy, right? So I would love her to see her fully embrace horror from the beginning. And I don't know, from what I'm saying, she has had some very interesting in mind. Her next film, for example, right, with Jennifer Aniston and Peter Dinklage here. I'm gonna figure out the plots here, right? A single mother locked in a fierce custody battle with her gaslighting ex-husband. Her ultimate plan is to win custody is to track down Santa Claus and convince him to testify on her behalf at the divorce hearing. So something's not good in her head at all in the best way possible. So I see the potential here for her to do something wacky, fun, dreadful, and horror. Next up, we have Damien Chazelle. Look, man, I don't know where he has been at, but I'm pretty sure he has finished rapping on next film. And look, I would not forgive y'all for the way y'all shit on Babylon, but again, that's a story for a different day here. Look, man, I think a lot of his films, the themes of obsession, right, wanted to be somebody. La La Land, Babylon, Whiplash, those things of obsession could definitely be horror related. For example, look at something like the Magazine trilogy with Pearl X, etc., etc. Those things of pressure, control, wanting to be someone, and how slowly you lose your fucking mind trying to be someone. Look at something like Black Swan, which is great. So something up that alley, I could definitely see him doing that. He also understands how editing and sound can make them feel way more anxiety driven than it should be. Those bad cuts, those intense close-ups, that pounding music, that feeling of exhaustion, stuff like Whiplash, feeling so claustrophobic and so intense. I think he would do a phenomenal horror movie. And for someone like him where music is so important to the movies like La La Land and Whiplash, even something like Babylon, which I love that score as well. His score in a horror movie could be fucking phenomenal. I think a David Chazelle score in a horror movie would be amazing. Those things of what happens when your dreams and your desires and your ambition, they take control over you. It has been done before, and I think Damien could definitely do that and be great at it. Now, lastly, side note here, Yorgos here, love him so fucking much here. With films like The Lobster, The Killing of a Sacred Deer, kinds of kindness, those are definitely horror adjacent, but I think he needs a full-on horror movie at some point. I see the potential. This eeriness feeling he has throughout would be great. A lot of his characters are like emotionally detached, which I love, right? They almost feel unnatural in a way. The combos feel like they're awkward, they're cold, and somewhat robotic, but it works so well for him, and that creates this unsettling feeling that something is fucking wrong, even when nothing is openly terrifying happening. He has always been able to make an audience feel so uncomfortable, and I would love to see that uncomfort turn into something potentially terrifying. But that is the list. If you have any other directors who should make a horror movie, or even actors, definitely let me know. But that being said, follow the Instagram. We're posting daily over there. We have now hit over 1,200 followers, so I greatly appreciate y'all for that. But anyways, I'm off of here. Y'all have a great night, day, wherever it may be. He who.
Down on myself, hope you're doing well.